So, gang, a little tea spilling this morning, I guess. So I'm a committeeman on the local Republican city committee, which also makes me a member of the county committee. To be a member, like, obviously there is an election process. People from a party have to elect you into those seats. If there's a vacancy, you can be appointed into those seats, things like that. And so there's been a lot of like random appointments over the years. And what I've noticed is that and from what I've gathered and from being at these different meetings and talking to people, there used to be like rules in the bylaws at our local level that said that like you cannot be an elected official and sit on, excluding obviously the committee appointment, but like this way you don't have aldermen, mayors, county legislators, things like that sitting on the Republican committee, which essentially is appointing elected officials or, designating people and coordinating efforts. And this way, if you have somebody sitting on the committee, for example, and they have somebody that's not on the committee, but they're running against them, it skews it. It makes it like, you get this partisan nonsense going on. And to avoid that, they had this rule that said that you can't be an elected official and sit on it. And then it either got removed from the bylaws, or some people have told me that New York State actually passed a rule that says it's permissible, and then you can elect to put it back into your bylaws or whatever. And so there's all this nonsense. And so before we went to any extreme, we just figured at a local level and we discussed it. I keep bringing it up and everybody keeps, they nod along. There's never any dissenting opinions amongst all the committeemen. And it's hard to get people to actually show up as a committeeman. They get kind of like appointed into people that like, oh, we know this person and they're good. And it's like they've never ever shown up. People get appointed. They don't realize they've been appointed. And then, they never show up. And then it's like it's come time for them to be reappointed or be put on a ballot. They're asked, they're like, am I supposed to be there? Like, you probably should get somebody else. And that happens quite often. Or there's people that are just there and, we can't remove this person or that person, but it's like they never show up, they never vote, they never voice their opinion. They just happen to be, be friends with a loved one or whoever, and, their loved one, their spouse is in it, and so they just show up as a matter of, stance and whatnot. And it's, it is what it is. But with that said, this year we had an appointment. We had a vacancy. Like there was like a bunch of reshuffling because, one ward had more than enough people. And a lot of times you're never going to get 3 people from one ward to be in it. Like sometimes there's people in the city, the city, and they actually show up at our committee meetings, and because we're all members of the county committee as a whole. So a lot of times somebody will get just appointed as a filler in the town of Olean, and then they come and sit on our city committee because they're a city resident. And so and as soon as an available spot opens up during the next election or a vacancy, they kind of just, recuse their one seat and get appointed. It's such a low level that like these things happen all the time, and it's just like arbitrary stuff. But so there's a vacancy in Ward 5 this year. And somebody at the county level, when we get petitions to pass, a lot of times there's like one person that'll generate these petitions. And, they're going off of what the city committee says or the county committee. And then, obviously you don't have 20 people making up their own forms. You get one person that makes the form up, make sure it's legal and all that other stuff. And then you pass it around to the passers and the people that walk the beat, knock on the doors and get the signatures. And somebody after the last mayoral election, which during this whole time, we discussed it and had Bill Alio won the election, for example, like he was going to step down off the committee because, and it was one of those things. And we weren't going to change the bylaws. We were actually going to just start weaning out elected officials. So we didn't have to change the bylaws. Like, why? That's just a big process. It's a big to-do. And it's like, we're just going to live and die by this philosophy, which used to always be, it was one of our core values of being on these committees, which is where you're not going to have elected officials sitting on your committee. And so we're going to wean it out. We're going to, we're going to remove some of them. And then all of a sudden the county legislators were going to slowly wean off our committee because there's no reason to have elected officials on there. And it's like, you can really support an elected official over another. That's fine. And still sit on the committee. But to actually have that person, it's very, it doesn't pass the smell test. And that's what it's really about. And so, the game plan is to go through and get, and these people were going to start weaning themselves off. Well, Bill lost. Well, he doesn't have to remove himself from the committee anymore because he's now an elected official, or he's not an elected official now. And so, like, his name stayed on there, and there was a vacancy, and somebody at the county level put the new mayor's name on there. And I reached out to the people, and they're like, oh no, we've talked to her. She's going to, if her because her petition's already out there and getting passed with the other 3 openings in that particular ward. And don't worry, she's going to step down because she understands the deal that we're, because if this keeps happening, we are going to change the bylaws, at which point she would automatically get removed in any of the county legislators. So instead of doing a slow wean process, we're just going to do a scorched earth process where everyone that's elected officials is just going to be off the city committee and eventually, hopefully, the county committee, because it's not right. It's unethical. It is unethical. I'm going to say that again and again. And it's unethical to do that. And so, like, as much as people think I'm a piece of shit, just throwing it out there, I get that all the time. You're a piece of shit. Like, no, I'm not really a piece of shit. I actually am about following the rules. And even though my opinion might differ from yours, I am about being ethical and honest and true. And that is where I have a lot of gripes with a lot of different people, amongst even my own party, is that they don't like the fact that, like, I'm going to hold myself, even if it's to my detriment. Like, well, I'm going to lose a ton of money if we change this rule, but I'm still going to change it because it's the right thing to do. It has nothing to do with, like, the financial gain on me, like, or whatever, or like if it impacts me in some way, positive, negative, if it doesn't achieve my agenda, like, because everybody has an agenda, like, you know what I mean? Like, you have your own way of thinking, and to help other people see your way of thinking, or to push something that you feel strongly about, that's called an agenda. So even if it's against my own agenda, I will push and vote for something that is the right thing to do, regardless of what my agenda is or it's trying to achieve. That's really what it is. I don't play dirty in politics. I mean, I have played dirty in the past, and you know what I mean? Like, but not when it comes to the rules of the game. Like, you play the game the way the game is written, and when people start changing the rules or manipulating the rules so that there's unfair and unethical rules in play, I'm going to make sure that those rules get removed and it goes back to the original, ethical way of doing things. And so that's where I'm getting at with this. So back to our story, which is, the mayor is supposedly going to step down once she's appointed, or once those petitions got passed, she was just going to reject the position, and then they would have a vacancy, and they were going to fill in from some of the other people who actually do show up. And I have a friend who is really, like, trying to get, like, more active in the community and more, he volunteers at different places. His wife volunteers at different places. He's raising 4 or 5 kids. Like, you know what I mean? He's like, there's, it's just, they're a wholesome family. And I'm like, dude, you're a strong Republican. Why don't you come and get into this and blah, blah, blah. And so now there's a vacancy. And, so I reach out to people. Oh, we'll fill this vacancy. I'm like, you know what? I'll pass his petitions. I'm going to pass his petitions, because when she steps down, at least then he'll be on the ballot and he'll have his first taste of getting, and not that there wouldn't be a primary, because Amy was going to reject the mayor was going to reject the seat, because we are going to eliminate this position if people keep trying to do this where they're elected officials and be on the committee. So then comes time, we pass the ballots, we pass the petitions, whatever. Then all of a sudden they say, hey, this is going to force a primary. I'm like, well, why would it force a primary if the mayor is not running? Oh, no, she's going to run. And then what sparked this podcast really was not that just that today is primary day and I need you to go out there and vote, especially if you're in Ward 5, because this is becoming one of those just like little just kernels of dumbness. It's fine if elected officials come and sit in on our meetings. We've never, ever had an issue with that. If you want to give us your take on what's going on at city level, county level, government level, mayoral level, what have you, come and sit in on our meeting. Let us know what you're doing. Talk with us. Like, that's fine. You're not going to be a voting member on our board. And that's really what it comes down to. And so no one's not inviting these people to the meeting. It's just, this is the way that things are going. We're going back to an ethical standard. But then she decided, from all available metrics, she is not stepping down. She's not going to recuse herself from this this appointment that her name mistakenly got put on. And I finally asked around to more people that were passing, and they were like, yeah, no, you know, a relative of hers had mentioned, like, oh no, there's no reason that she's the mayor, so there's no reason she shouldn't be on this committee, that she should not be on this committee just automatically as being the mayor. It's like, well, the mayor doesn't come with that much power. Really, it's not that powerful of a position. So you can't just, I'm the mayor, this is my way or the highway. It's no, this is the way things are supposed to be done. And, you know, this clearly was an error. And, you know, this is how it should be done. And so, but now there's going to be an election today, and, you know, there's two people on the ballot, the mayor being one of them, and another one is a very staunch Republican, and they live in Ward 5, and the other two, there's no vacancies in Ward 4 or Ward 1, so one of them is obviously the new guy I was talking about, and then, which you've probably seen him on the show before, it's Paul the Good Husband. He's got that name for a reason, because he's a really, you know, just conservative guy, and he's perfect for, you know, the Republicans. So, and then there is the person from Ward 1 who's a very staunch Republican, and she's been on the committee for years. She always makes every meeting, and yada yada. And so it's one of those, like, if you're in Ward 5, you should go out there and vote. And obviously, like, it's weird that we have to go through this, and it's not any, like, it's nothing against the mayor. It's just, this is not your position. Like, this is not your place. I don't know why your name got thrown on here. And, if it was by your own doing, well, like, you're incorrect. And if it was not by your own doing, then you should just say, hey, listen, this is not the place for an elected official. Like, that's it. I sat on the board when I was an alderman. I don't want to clear the water on this, like, and then I realized that these rules were in place, and a lot of them hadn't been enforced, and the state gave buys on them and all that other stuff. And it's like, and that's when I was like, oh, well, this doesn't seem right. And I, you know, being an ethical person, I would always try my best to try to finagle these. And when I discovered these rules, that's why I've been making this push. And then I wasn't an alderman anymore. And so it's like, okay, that's one less person that's in an elected position. If I were to ever run for an elected position again, I would be stepping down off this board once taking office. And there's other people that were running for judge this year. A good friend of mine, he stepped down as soon as he announced, like the day before he announced that he was running for judge, because he did not want any, that shows you the ethicalness of this. And the guy that's running for judge is one of the most ethical people that I know. He is one of the, like, does not want the smell test to smell at all, like, for any reason at all. Like, if it even has the slightest hint of a smell, he doesn't want anything to do with it, any impropriety, anything. So that's how ethical of a person he is. And he would not be, he stepped down before he even decided to run. I'm just saying the rule is that you just can't be an elected official on the board. And obviously, depending on how today's election goes, is going to determine if our bylaws change. Because, like, it's one of those things. Like, if all of a sudden the mayor gets on there, then it's going to be like, okay, well, I'm just going to put forth a proposition, and then it's going to get slam dunk in the hole. Like, because it's already like 95% of the people there agree with this rule. There's a bunch of the elected officials that don't agree with it. And it's like, and it's one of those, like, well, don't infiltrate, you know, the party. Well, I saw an ad last night. Somebody sent me an ad that said, like, vote for the 2 true residences of Ward 5, and it's like, that has nothing to do with it. It has nothing to do with it. We have 3 positions, and we have 3 candidates that are qualified to do it, and there's not the other person is not qualified to do it because they're an elected official. That's the rule. Like, Jesus, I don't know how much more I can beat it into people's heads. And I don't know. It is what it is. So I encourage every one of you to go out there and vote. If you're in Ward 5, I encourage you to vote George Philgrove, Michiko Meckelfresh, and Paul LeBlanc. And it's no, like I said, it's no referendum on the mayor. It literally is just like, there's a syntax error that happened, and then it caused this to happen. And, like, you know, nobody wants to get struck by lightning. Nobody wants to make an error, not crossing a T or dotting an I, and then your tax return gets rejected. And it's like, nobody wants that to happen, but that's what happened here. So we just need to make the amendment and then go forward. And that's how we determine how we go forward, is by having you go out there and vote to figure this out. Otherwise, like, it just makes more paperwork for me. I don't like paperwork. I like paperwork sometimes, but I don't need all the paperwork. So, all right, guys. See you next time, Life22.